All right, so we have this thing all unpackaged. We're gonna go ahead and unhook that compressor there, get that one out of there, and we're gonna put this one up on that mezzanine there. We should have just enough room to put that right there. Now, that's the only spot we have the three-phase power to run this compressor with. However, what we're gonna do is we're going to wire up a spot over in cold storage and move this compressor here along with those tanks, and I also have an air dryer. We're going to put that over into cold storage just so that we don't have to listen to the compressor. This compressor here, it is a 10 horse and it runs at 1765 RPMs. The decibel level on this is supposed to be in the neighborhood of about 78, I believe. Now that Ingersoll compressor, that ran at like 3,400 and some odd RPM, so it ran twice as fast as what that one runs, and it was horribly loud. That was a single phase unit that I bought about 20 years ago, and then I bought that 60-gallon unit. I can't remember what kind of a compressor that had on there, but they had a good one, like a Quincy or something. That ran at the same speed that this one here did, and that one, of course, there's no motors on there at all we're using is the tanks for storage, but that one was a three-phase unit, a lot quieter. And the reason why that Ingersoll didn't last as long is they want to get their CFMs up on paper to sell a unit that's giving out a high amount of CFMs. However, what they're doing is they're overspeeding the pump to get that capacity, and it just doesn't last as long. That's more or less a homeowner special right there, but we need the industrial one, and that's what this here is. Now, when those compressors there, when they got tired and we phased out of them, we ended up going to that rotary screw compressor to just get a little more life out of it. However, they only, the capacity on them, the maximum pressure that you're supposed to get out of them is about 125, and we just can't run an air gun. We just can't do the job that we need to do with a 1-inch air gun. So we ended up increasing the pressure on that other one up to 135. That was satisfactory for what we were doing. However, this one here, we could set it, but it's a rental unit, and we don't want to get into, you know, setting the pressure up on it. And when I was doing the wheels on the tractor, it just wasn't cutting it. So we decided to go back to a reciprocating type compressor. Now, the garage that we deal with that does a lot of work for us, they have two Quincy 10 horse units that they've had for 20 years, and this one here ended up getting from D&W Diesel. They had this one right in stock, and I actually went down to Hanson Corey's, the old Saunders plant in Marcellus. They just bought one about a year ago. I listened to it run. It was doing the job that they need to do. They're doing, you know, just as much heavy duty work as we are, if not more, and it seems to do the job for them guys. So the maximum pressure on this one, you can run this one up to 175 pounds of pressure, and that way we'll get the maximum amount of work out of these impacts that we have. This has an automatic drain on it as well. We're going to be running a dryer on it as well. So this has got, you know, the automatic water ejection on it so that it'll automatically drain out the moisture that is accumulated on the inside of the tank. So we'll go ahead and get that compressor brought down, and then we'll get that one setting into place. All right, we've got it down here. We brought it down safely. Now I had a comment on the video when I put this up there and somebody said I violated every OSHA law there was. I don't know what they meant. I don't know if you're not supposed to overhead lift anything with the forklift or what, but we're just gonna clean this up. It's got a little bit of dust and dirt on it. But this thing has got like 9,000 hours on it, and it does look like brand new. So we wanna send it back to them in the condition that we got it in. So Tim's just gonna wipe it down. I need to evacuate the air out of the tank. That'll blow everybody's eardrums, if it didn't already, huh? All right, we're gonna clean this up. It came with a box that went down over the top of it, and Tim is gonna return this to him. Well, we've got this wired up. We had to switch a module thing around in there to switch it from 230 volt to 460 volt. So we're gonna go ahead and turn this on and we're gonna see how it sounds. I don't know how loud this one's gonna be. We've got a master switch right here. And there we go. So we don't actually have it hooked up to the other tanks yet. I've got a refrigerant air dryer here. This is a Kaiser. I've got to get some fittings for it. And we've got to hook up a filter coming off of the one end of the tank. It's going to go into the dryer. Air is going to come back out of the dryer, and we're going to run it over to those other two tanks there. We'll let that run, let it pump up the pressure. And I had to get a little help from our electrician, make sure I was wiring things right. And that was handy to have him help me with that. He actually sent me a diagram. He drew it out on a piece of paper. So I want to thank Brian for doing that. We have Saxton Electric do a lot of our electrical work around here, and them guys are real handy. So we'll get that hooked up here a little later on after I get some fittings for it, but we'll show you what else we've been working on here. We've got the utility body almost put together. That cage there, that basket, was mounted on the right-hand side of this utility body, and then there was a cab shield that went on here. We're not going to put the cab shield back on there. We have decided to run that basket across the front. Now we've got the gas drive Harbor Freight special air compressor that's in the front of the body on the right hand side. We had the welder crossways up in the front on the left, and that kind of limited the working part of the utility body. You know, we only had the back few feet. We had the torches on this side, and of course we have changed things around a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to mount the welder on this back left side, and then we're going to put the air compressor on the right hand side, and then we're thinking of putting the torches up front. Then I can carry a pallet of seed in here. It's not going to exactly fit between the wheel wells, but we could set it on a couple of 6x6s or something to miss them wheel wells there. So we're going to have a little more working space of the body here. So everything is slowly coming together. That box there is ready to come off of the truck, and we got looking at it. It's not in that bad a shape. It would make somebody a good quick service body to put on their truck. Maybe we should sell it. Kind of kidding, but I imagine it'll go right in the scrap truck. But It's pretty well rusted out. You can see it's all kind of flexed itself right there from the weight of the body. Yeah, kind of, she's kind of shot. So that is that. So we're going to lift that off tomorrow and set this one on there. So it is, I wonder how much pressure it's up to. It made a couple of piston sounds here. I don't know exactly what it's doing, but I kind of wanted it to get up to operating pressure here. And it is up to like 125 right now. I don't know why it pisses like that, but I should read the manual. This has got an automatic shutdown if the oil gets too low on it. And yeah, I like it. It's not all that loud, not as loud as I thought it would be. Up to 150, so we'll join back with you here once it gets up to pressure. But what we had to do is we had to take this unit here out and switch it with that one. That was like 90 bucks, and what that's allowing us to do is run, it's three-phase power, but instead of running on 230 volt, it's running on 460. We're at 160 pounds of pressure. Want to make sure this shuts off at 175 or so. And there it is, right at 175, and then it's got an automatic unloader on it so that when the air compressor starts up again, it doesn't have pressure on the heads. So I'm going to pick up my tools here, and yeah. Alright, so we played around with this a little bit, and what that piston was when we first started it, it has an automatic water ejection on the tank, and you can set that for how long it pisses out the air so it'll blow off the moisture off the bottom of the tank. You can set that anywhere from a half a second with the length of the airflow to 10 seconds, and you can set it anywhere from a half a minute to 45 minutes. In other words, wherever you have the timer set at, and I have it set at 45 minutes right now. So every 45 minutes, it's going to automatically eject the water off the tank. The cut-in pressure is set at 90 psi, and the cut-out is at 175. Bang. Just that couple sentences, or just a little bit of talking I did, that's how fast this pumps up. So if you followed all my previous videos, that compressor that we had in here would always be running, but it wouldn't be running under load. What that rotary compressor did, and the beauty behind them is, what it does is when the cut-in pressure turns it on, it builds up the pressure, and once it builds up the pressure, it unloads itself, and the pump is just idling. And the reason why it is idling, it thinks that you are calling for air. So if you're working with an air tool or something, it's already running, and then once that pressure gets down to the point where it needs to cut back in, that loader valve engages again, and it comes up to pressure, and therefore the pump is not always starting and stopping under an event where you're calling for air. Now, we've got a lot of airline running through the shop here, and once in a while we run into little tiny leaks. And I think the reason why this one is going to work good, if you get a little tiny leak, it's got to leak from 175 pounds down to 90 before it turns on. So it's going to take a long time to go from 175 to 90. However, once that thing kicks on, it comes up in a hurry. And I'm going to have to look back at the timer on this video here on how long it took to bring itself up to pressure. I think it was only about a minute and a half. So we're liking this thing already. Yeah. It's every once in a while I would have to turn that other compressor off just so that I could hear myself think, and then I would forget to turn the damn thing back on. And this one seems to be quieter than the other one. Tim, he's got hearing aids. He says not, so he's hearing the sounds a little different than we can. But if we get to the point where we don't want any noise in here, we are going to move it out of here and put it in cold storage just so we don't have to hear the compressor. But it would be nice to be able to have it right where you're working all the time, and it'll force you to maybe keep the oil checked on it and make sure the damn air filters ain't falling off of it and whatever like that. But I think that's going to be a great unit for us. Get the air dryer hooked up, get the moisture out of the lines, maybe save on some tools a little bit here. We don't run the most expensive air tools, and we don't run a lot of air tools, but that would save on the longevity of the tools. So I think tomorrow we'll have some fun mounting that thing on there, won't we, Tim? All right, we've got the new compressor all hooked up. This unit here is the old one. It's very similar to the unit that we are renting. It's a 10 horsepower rotary screw compressor. The one that we were renting, that one there was a self-contained unit. It had an air tank on the base of it, and then it also had a refrigerated air dryer on it. So we just got the compressor all hooked up. We'll take you over and we'll show you that. So we've got this compressor all set up, and you'll see just to the right of it, there's a yellow unit, and what that is a refrigerated air dryer. I ended up buying that just before the compressor actually took a crap. Now, we end up getting a lot of moisture in the air lines in the shop here, and we have had problems with that forever. And I just finally got to the point where I said, you know, we're going to have to get an air dryer. And, well, now we have one, and it is working in conjunction with the new compressor. Now, that unit there, what I'm doing is I'm running the air out of the right-hand side in through a filter unit. That's going over into the refrigerated air dryer, and then we're running off of the dryer over into the 2 storage tanks. Now, I opted to keep both of them tanks just so that we could have more of a supply of air. We've got a 60 and an 80 gallon. They're not hurting us at all. We probably don't need them, but it is smart just to have a little extra storage to maybe run an air gun a little longer than what you need to, or whatever. Now, before I bought this one, I was gonna buy another rotary screw compressor. Now, that rotary screw compressor that we were using, that had a maximum pressure rating of 125 PSI. We were moving the wheels on the 7290, and I could not loosen some of the bolts just because I was not getting the pressure that was needed to run the 1-inch air gun. Our old unit, that would run up to 135 PSI, and that extra 10 pounds of pressure was just enough to run that impact and give it an adequate amount of air to do the job that it needed to do. Well, I didn't want to buy another rotary screw compressor unless I could get one that had a little more of a higher pressure rating than what that one that we were using, the one we were renting, currently had. Now, they all typically run right around that 125 to 135 pressure rating. This unit here runs at 175 PSI. In other words, it'll pump up to 175 pounds of pressure and it'll shut off. And we have we can dial that down at this point. I'm going to leave it at 175. We might dial it down to 150, and we currently have it set so it'll kick on at 90 PSI. Now, earlier on in the video here, we did a pump up, and I was kind of talking, and we let it run down to 90 PSI and then kicked it back up, and it pumped up rather fast from 90 to 175, and I actually timed it here a little while ago, and it takes 5.5 minutes to pump up from 0 to 175, and then you run the air down to 90, have it kick on, and then from 90 to 175, it only takes a minute. So that is not going to run as long as the rotary screw did. I think I described it earlier on in the video here, the reasons why the rotary screw would run so much longer. This one here also has an automatic water ejector on it. I think I described that as well. That has a timer on there, and you could have it eject anywhere from 30 seconds up to 45 minutes. And then you can also set a timer on there for how long you want it to blow off any moisture that you have in the tank. That refrigerated air dryer, that has the same timer on it, and that will blow off any moisture that it has accumulated. I'm running a filter unit off that new compressor. It goes over into the refrigeration unit, then the air comes out of that refrigeration air unit, and it starts feeding those extra storage tanks, and then out of the tank on the left, we have it feeding the supply lines in the shop. That compressor also has a low oil shutdown feature on it. So once the oil in the pump, if that gets low, that will shut the unit off, and it won't let you run it again until you add oil, and then you have to hit the reset on it. So that is a nice feature. I think the Ingersoll at one time had that on there too, but that unit there ran twice as fast as this one. This one's going to last twice as long just because the pump doesn't have to turn as many RPMs. It's a two-stage reciprocating compressor. It should serve us really well. So far, I really like it. The whole time that I've been talking here, that compressor has not turned on. It has not turned on in the last 20 minutes to a half hour. The other compressor that I had, seems like that thing was always frickin' running, always running. This unit here, I ended up doing I timed it on how long it would take to fill the 120 gallon tank from 0 to 175. It took 5.5 minutes to fill. I thought that was overly long, but I never did figure out how long it took to fill the other compressor on how long it took to fill these two tanks. It kicks on at 90 PSI, so once the pressure drops, it'll kick on at 90, and then when it pumps back up to 175, it only takes a minute to run from 90 to 175, and then it shuts off. So if you have an air leak in the shop or something, then, you know, if it has to run, it's not going to run that long to bring itself back up to pressure. Now, when we were taking wheels off of the 7290, I had problems with that other compressor. That was only running at 125 PSI. And when I was looking at rotary screw compressors, that generally seemed to be right around the pressure rating that all of them ran at. Anywhere from 125 to 135. You could increase them, but they don't really advise doing that, and maybe that's why our other compressor didn't last as long. This one is made to run up to 175, and it's going to run your air guns all day long. That extra 10 pounds of pressure that we were used to from running with our old compressor to running that rental unit made a real big difference, because we could not get the bolts to loosen up that were in the holding the duals on that 7290. I actually ran the gas drive compressor that's in the back of the Army truck there to do some of that work. So this should serve us well. I like it so far, and I think it's going to be a good solid unit that hopefully Andrew and Jared will be running it when they're my age. So that's going to do it for this video, folks. I want to thank you for watching, and we will catch you at the next video.